I'm Neil, and this is my buddy Al, and we're here to tell you about a river that we just did not too long ago, the Bonaventure River in Gaspe, Quebec. Gaspe, it's a beautiful region. You may have heard of it. It's like a big touristy region in Quebec. It's all ocean coastline, and it's an agricultural but also a thriving area. It's worth visiting in its own right, I think, Al.
I think it is. And actually, my proposal to folks is that they do it one way going in and do it another way going out. So you'll recall, Neil, that we went across up around the top to Percé Rock, which is it's actually, I think, a UNESCO site of some sort. And then we also went across to the Chic-Choc Mountains, which were very interesting and helped remind me of just how wild the area was. Because if you recall, it was June when we did the Bonaventure, and there were still snowdrifts in the mountains.
Bonaventure River itself, I mean, it was on our list for a long time. It's sort of well known as a salmon river, but also as a canoeing river. And it's hard to get information about some of these rivers from outfitters and online. I would say the river is an intermediate river overall. I mean, it's not for the faint-hearted. It is a whitewater river for sure, and it's also a wilderness river. We were there for pretty much a week, and we didn't see anybody on the river. So that makes it remote and also quite adventurous.
I would agree with that. And it starts really quickly. I know we're going to talk about that later, but I'd say it was particularly when we did it in early June, it was very frothy. You can always eddy out. Neil, you know this. We've both eddied out under hard conditions, but it is not it is a narrow, frothy river, lots of white water, and you just have to kind of run and gun.
Absolutely. So I mentioned a map. So on Carte Plein Air, there's this great map that shows the river. You'll see the rapids indicated, each of them. I mean, it's full of rapids. In some places, you have the continuous rapids marked. That's just, they don't map each set, but it's just continuous rapids. And then you've got the campsites marked as well. The map is in French, so your French has to be pretty good. For the campsites, a G is a group site, or it's a number for the number of tent sites. And then the quality is A, B, C, or D. And we found that the map was really accurate. In fact, it was updated in 2021 by one of the local outfitters. So it's a really good map.
This is a river with a lot of sweepers, particularly early in the season. You have to stay on your toes. I mean, as you know, Neil, my partner and I tipped on the river as a result of a sweeper that we did not correctly anticipate. But round every corner, and it's a very kind of windy, quick turning river, you do have to be on your guard.
Absolutely. So it's a river in two parts. You have the lower part of the river and then the upper part of the river. And I know this is weird, but we're going to start with the lower part because when you hear about people doing the Bonaventure River, 9 times out of 10, what they've actually paddled is the lower part. So that's from kilometer 47. It's the confluence with the Bonaventure West River where it comes in. And there's a put-in point there. It's mostly class 2 rapids from then on down. And it's a 2 to 3 day trip. Ending at the Outfitters, which is Sim Aventure, CIME. And they've got a big site there right at the bottom of the river where most people finish their trip having put up a few days ahead.
Yeah, my sense of that part is, as you say, primarily class 2 rapids. Like the river broadens a little bit at that point, so there is a little bit more room to work with. It's also, as you mentioned earlier, it's a salmon river, and so you'll find that you're going through different areas where there are different salmon pools, and it's a world-class salmon river, by the way. That may be something, depending on when you are going through the river, that you might find that you're dodging salmon fishermen.
And of course, if you are planning on fishing, you want to pay attention to the fishing regulations. And there is a website there for fishing licenses that you can check out. But that brings us to the upper part of the river. So that is at Lac Bonaventure, which on the map is kilometer 127. This section of the river is a spring run. You can get away with doing the lower part of the river in the summer, but really it has to be above 50 cubic meters per second flow in order to do the upper part of the river. So that you're looking at May and June to do that. And it's a 5 to 6 day trip from there down to Sim-Aventure. We did it in 5, I think, but that was we could have used another day, I think. So I think really it's a 6 day trip. And as Al mentions, there's sweepers, there's the odd log jam that you have to really find your way over. The river is a bit braided in parts, so but it's a really exciting whitewater river.
Yeah, no, totally agree with that. And you have to build in time for some of the portages. As you say, the log jam, you'll recall, Neil, we came across one that took us an hour and a half to solve, to figure our way through it, to kind of reattach to the river. One thing I would say that on the road up to Lac Bonaventure, we had an outfitter. I'm glad we had him, Neil. I did not want to see your car be exposed to some of the bumps that occurred in that. It was a very rough road, very remote feeling. We did the Bonaventure River in June, and you'll recall that there had been maybe one other group, but there hadn't been a lot of groups. So there was a little bit of bushwhacking on the portages, having to navigate around the log jams. But it was exquisitely beautiful. Like, one of the things I would note that at that time of the year with the river, there's just a richness of the green in that region that was just tremendously beautiful. And the other thing that I would note for you is, for those people who like birds, it is bird heaven, particularly for warblers. There were 8 different varieties of warblers. And those of you who are birders know that often it's hard to see warblers, but there were many warblers just on the kind of river, just on the river bends that you could see. In particular, the magnolia warbler was just everywhere. It was a bright, beautiful warbler, and as are many warblers. And it was just striking. I've never been on a river that was that rich in bird life, and in particular, that type of bird. So I would highly recommend that.
Absolutely, you don't need an alarm clock on the Bonaventure because
No,
the
no, you
birds will get
don't.
you.
No.
Um, as Al mentioned, the outfitter. So it's a different outfitter if you're doing the trip on the upper Bonaventure than the lower on a Bonaventure. The lower river is supported by Sim Aventure, but they actually stopped doing the shuttle to the upper part of the river because people were running into trouble and they were forever going to rescue people. There is a permanent ambulance station at kilometer 47. So that tells you how many people do find themselves in a fix in that river. And so it's actually Escomer, which is an adventure company that operates in the Gaspe and all kinds of adventure tourism, but they will support a shuttle for the upper Bonaventure.
Didn't want us to leave the Bonaventure River without a mention of the rocks. So the water is some of the clearest in North America. And so it's like you're riding over the rocks. And one of the things that I noticed in particular, like, you've got your standard river rocks, nice and rounded, very beautiful. So I have an example of the sort of river rock that you can get there, standard rock. But one of the things that I really liked about the Bonaventure River is that you almost saw the rocks, and on top of them, it's like they had a dollop of whipped cream or ice cream, and that's calcite. And so there's an example of calcite on a rock. And we had many examples of that as you were kind of floating over. It's tremendously beautiful. I do want to mention one thing about, if you do choose to get a salmon license, they're quite expensive. I think they run in the $80. Don't quote me on that. Do check. We went right at the beginning of the salmon season. We did purchase a license. There were no fish there, folks. And so be sure that maybe you're a little more in the middle of the season. You might have good luck, but it is a world-class salmon fishery, but the salmon have to be spawning for it to happen. And for whatever reason, maybe it was a little cooler. That wasn't the case during our trip.
For campsites, I mean, there were great campsites, and the map, as we said, does a good job at pointing them out. They were adequate for us because it's on Crown land. You don't have to make any kind of reservations, so it's first come, first served. There was no one on the river when we went, so that was not an issue. And we were a relatively small group, but nevertheless, we had great luck with camping and firewood everywhere that we went.
Yeah, that's true. And just to reinforce a point you mentioned earlier, Neil, the map is very accurate. Like it gives you both the size of the campsite site and also the grade of the campsite. So if you want to hold out for that better site, you can, but you also know what you're getting at each point.
Absolutely. And speaking of accommodations, the other place we stayed was the Hotel Riotel, which is located right at the confluence of the Bonaventure River into the Baie de Chaleur. And it was an excellent hotel. I mean, we were steps from the saltwater, and it was there was a good restaurant there and everything else. And it is part of the local chain as well. So if you're traveling the region, that's you could stay at the Riotel chain of hotels.
Yeah, and
That's the Bonaventure River. It's a real gem in the Gaspe Z, a great whitewater river for intermediate paddlers, a spring run, a good 5-day trip. We had a blast, Al.
yes, and we want to go back.
Right on. So hopefully we'll see you out there sometime. So we hope this video is useful and take care and happy paddling.
Take care.